I sat outside the ER with dried blood on my sleeve, watching my phone light up again and again with messages about a house closing I was still expected to support. 6 missed calls, not one asking if I was alive. I didn't pick up a single one. By the 7th message, I wasn't confused anymore. I was just done. And for the first time in years, I didn't try to fix anything. Let me take you back to how it all started. It didn't start with anything dramatic. It started with small, temporary help after my daughter's divorce. At first, I told myself it was just groceries, a few bills, school fees for the grandchildren when things got tight, nothing permanent. That's what I believed. But temporary slowly turned into half her mortgage. Then it turned into emergency payments. Then it became normal for me to be the one they called whenever something went wrong. Somewhere along the way, I stopped being treated like her father. I became the fallback plan. My daughter never really asked if I could do it anymore. She just assumed I would. And her husband stayed quiet most of the time. He didn't need to say much. He just let her speak for both of them whenever money came up. Like they both understood I was easier to approach if it sounded like family help instead of a request. And my nephew, my sister's boy, he was different. He never asked for anything. He just showed up, fixing things around my house, bringing food when I forgot to eat properly, sitting with me while I tried to deal with paperwork that was starting to feel too complicated for me to handle alone. I used to think that was kindness. I didn't realize yet it was something more honest than what I was getting from my own daughter. That understanding came later. The first real crack came at a hardware store. Nothing cinematic, just a bad step and my body hitting the ground harder than I expected. Pain shot through my ribs instantly. A worker helped me sit down, and I called my daughter right away. She answered on the 3rd ring. "Dad, I'm in the middle of something important," she said. Before I even finished speaking, important. That word stuck in my head longer than the pain in my side. She didn't rush. She didn't even sound worried. It took her almost 3 hours to arrive. When she finally came in, she was still holding her phone, not for me, for calls, papers, timing, a house closing. She barely looked at me. She glanced once, like checking I was still in the same condition she expected. "You're fine now," she said, already stepping aside to answer another call. "This closing only happens once." That was the moment I noticed it clearly for the first time. She wasn't reacting to me. She was reacting to inconvenience, and I was just part of it. After that day, I started seeing patterns I had ignored for years. The mortgage company contacted me directly one morning. They needed verification support. I didn't even know my name had been added as financial backing for a bigger house my daughter was trying to buy. When I asked her about it, she didn't even look uncomfortable. She smiled like I was supposed to understand. "Dad, you always said you'd help when things got serious," she said. "This is just making it official." Her husband nodded from behind her. "It's for the kids," he added. "Stability." Both of them looked at me like I was already agreeing, like my role in this was never in question. That's when something inside me shifted. Not anger, just awareness. I wasn't being asked anymore. I was being used as an assumption. The second moment was quieter, but it hurt more. I had a cardiology appointment that morning. Nothing serious, just monitoring. I asked my daughter if we could have lunch after. She said yes immediately. 2 hours before, she canceled. "Something came up with the closing paperwork," she said. "It can't wait." No hesitation, no apology that meant anything. Just a reminder that I came second to everything else in her life. That afternoon, my nephew picked me up. I didn't call him. He just showed up. He already had my prescription, already fixed a loose railing on my porch I had been ignoring for months. "You should sit more, Uncle," he said casually, like it was obvious. And I remember thinking something I didn't fully understand at the time. He's the only one who acts like I still matter when I'm not useful. The major break came at a family dinner. I almost didn't go. I felt off all day, tight chest, slow breathing. I told myself it was nothing serious. That's what men like me always do. Halfway through dinner, it got worse. I stood too fast, and the room tilted slightly. My daughter rushed over at first, but even then, I saw it in her face. Not panic, not fear, calculation. She asked if I needed the hospital, but her phone was already in her hand. When it buzzed, she stepped back. "Dad, I can't miss this call," she said. "It's the closing window." And then she left, not after I was stable, not after I was seen, just left. My nephew didn't ask anything. He just took over, called emergency services, spoke to nurses, stayed calm the entire time like he had done it before. When I woke up later in the hospital, he was sitting next to me, quietly talking to a nurse about medication timing. No panic, no performance, just presence. Like it was normal to stay. That night changed everything. Because I saw them both clearly for the first time, my daughter only showed urgency when her schedule was threatened. My nephew showed urgency when I was. And the worst part, I had spent years rewarding the wrong one. The next morning, I stopped the monthly transfers. No warning, no conversation, just silence from my account. Within hours, my daughter called. Not to ask how I was, not to check what happened. She asked about the payment schedule. That told me everything I needed to know, because there wasn't even a pause long enough to pretend concern. Just money, always money. 2 days later, I met my lawyer. I told him everything had to change: accounts, property access, business control. What was left of my rental work would go to my nephew. My daughter's name came off everything tied to financial authority. I didn't raise my voice. That surprised me more than anything. I expected anger. But what I felt was simpler: clarity. The real turning point came one night in the hospital recovery room. My nephew came in quietly with medication trays. He labeled everything properly without being asked, checked doses, adjusted times. At around 2 a.m., I watched him sitting there organizing things no one would ever notice. No praise waiting, no reward expected, and something in me finally settled. He wasn't doing it to earn anything. He was doing it because I needed it. That was the difference I had missed for years. The truth didn't come from a secret. It came from repetition I had ignored. My daughter only cared when access to money was at risk. Every call, every argument, every sudden concern, it all pointed back to the same place. Not me, what I provided. And my nephew, he never asked for anything at all. He just stayed, and I had mistaken noise for love and silence for distance. When the legal changes took effect, my daughter showed up at my house. I had just gotten back from discharge papers when she walked in. She started talking fast about misunderstandings, fixing things. Her husband followed behind, already irritated. I didn't let them take control of the conversation. I kept my voice calm. "I confused helping you with protecting you from becoming dependent on me," I said. She stopped speaking immediately. Not because she didn't understand, because she did. I told her everything had already been changed, payments stopped, property sold, inheritance rewritten. None of it was waiting for approval anymore, just finished. Her husband tried to argue, but stopped when he realized I wasn't reacting emotionally. That was new for them. Me being calm. After that, the calls increased, Not concern, pressure, frustration dressed up as urgency. But I didn't answer, not once, because silence, when used right, changes everything. My nephew refused the business at first, said it was too much. I told him it wasn't a reward, it was correction. The final moment came a week later. My daughter stood outside near her car, no anger left in her voice, just confusion that had nowhere to go anymore. Inside, my nephew was going through company files at the kitchen table, like he had always belonged there. The grandchildren were playing in the yard, and I was sitting on the porch, finally not being negotiated with by my own life. Everything had already been decided, nothing left to convince, nothing left to chase. I turned my phone off and left it that way. The sun dropped low over the yard while everything stayed exactly where it was supposed to stay. No arguments waiting for me to fix them, no payments holding me in place, just a quiet house that didn't ask anything from me anymore. My nephew called from inside, asking about dinner. I answered without hesitation. My daughter didn't call, and for the first time, that didn't feel like loss. It felt like clarity. Love doesn't disappear when you stop paying for it. It just finally shows you who was never really there.